The most obvious, in my opinion, that is so strongly in support of Christian understanding of the biblical account for the resurrection is the embarrassing details that are baked within all of Scripture. Think about this. When Jesus was arrested, what the apostles do? They fled. They hid. If the apostles were in cahoots together, wouldn't it be, and Peter, being bold and of mighty courage, struck down 300 Roman guards and rescued Jesus single-handedly from the cross? We have the embarrassing details of his close inner circle abandoning Christ. Secondly, the discovery and testimony of the empty tomb by women. In first century, this is taboo. There's a lot of extra biblical evidence supporting that you could not take the women's testimony at face value, that women were not allowed to give testimony, and if the women did give testimony, you need to reject it. You cannot accept it. In the Talmud, it says this: any evidence which a woman gives is not valid to offer. Also, they are not valid to offer any type of evidence as well. Why would the New Testament include that embarrassing detail? Where followers would be like, really, you're listening to women? Yes, they were the primary witnesses. So if the Bible was trying to create a polished, well-accepted case for the resurrection of Jesus, they would have absolutely not included any of this within Scripture. The Gospels included that even the disciples did not believe he would rise again. When the women, and we read this, when the women came back, the disciples responded back saying, these words appeared to them as nonsense, and they were not believing them. See, even the disciples still, after hearing the women say Jesus rose again, they still did not believe it. The second most important, I believe, is the eyewitnesses' account. And Paul outlines this here in 1 Corinthians 15, 4-9. Then after that, he appeared to Cephas, then to the 12. Then he appeared to more than 500 brothers at one time, most of whom remain until now, but some have fallen asleep. So what he's saying here in verse 6 is that at the time of this writing, those individuals who have personally seen Jesus Christ are still alive today. That's outstanding. So if these letters that are in circulation at the time are incorrect, you think these eyewitnesses would say, that's not true, I was there, I never saw anything. But we have more than 500 witnesses alluding to that this is in fact a historical event that took place. And this was a physical bodily resurrection, not a ghost, not a spirit of Jesus, but was Jesus himself. And the interesting thing too is that the letters of the New Testament were not written hundreds of years after the fact. The New Testament was written where there were still eyewitnesses alive that could attest to the validity of the resurrected Christ. I mean, you see that this is a compounding amount of evidence that we have towards the resurrection. And then the final one is the supernatural transformations of the apostles, but then also through the life of Paul, who is now penning this.